All right, so it is 1 minute past noon, and I guess we'll go ahead and officially get the kickoff meeting started. So hello all, and thank you for being present today. I appreciate your time in attending this kickoff. This is the stakeholder kickoff meeting for our project CORE-CM in the Greater Green River and Wind River Basins, transforming and advancing a national coal asset. My name is Davin Bagdonis. I am the project lead. I am a research scientist at the University of Wyoming. I am in the Center for Economic Geology Research in the School of Energy Resources. And I'm honored to lead this project, and I'm honored to have such a strong team working with me on this. I wanted to emphasize that it is a team effort, and we get an example of that today. I unfortunately have the stomach flu that came to my house with a vengeance last night, and I will, in that effort, be participating, but I wanted to let everyone know my valued colleague, Charles Nye, who is also at the Center for Economic Geology Research, will be presenting much of the meeting today, along with Fred McLaughlin, our director at the center. And then we have a number of panelists who will be presenting their individual efforts on this particular project. We have additional panelists in the background who will be able to field questions. As attendees, you will not be able to use your microphone. So please use the dialog box, question and answer at the bottom of your screen. And at the end of the presentation, we will go through those. I will help direct and find answers for those. Should we run out of time before the hour concludes, we will get back to you with emails as best we can to fulfill those questions with good, hopefully detailed answers. I will stay tuned in the background. I apologize for this inconvenience, and I appreciate everyone's patience in our sort of last minute team effort restructuring this meeting. Not expected in the very least, but Charles and the rest of the team here are very experienced in these types of projects, and I have full faith in them. So without further ado, thank you, Charles.
Thank you, Davin. There's a risk of you making me blush. Thank you for this great setup. I'm Charles Nye. I'm a research scientist at the Center for Economic Geology Research, just like Davin. And I have the privilege of supporting his project lead here. I will be a task lead in the actual project for task 3, but I'll be presenting on a little bit more than that this morning or afternoon, depending on where you are. This is a standard disclaimer for all federal work. This says that the opinions of the United States federal government are not necessarily ours, and vice versa. For our kickoff this morning, I'm going to give you an overview of the U.S. Department of Energy CORE-CM initiative and the various U.S. basins that they're targeting with their whole project, their whole initiative. I'm going to give you an overview of our particular version of that project in the Green River Basin and Wind River Basins, the Greater Green River Basin, GGRB, and Wind River Basin. And then we're going to go through some team introductions and the project tasks, where you'll see each of the task leads presenting on the work they plan to be doing in this project. We'll end with a statement of thanks to our stakeholders and everyone else in the region who's supporting us. That means you. And we'll give an opportunity for questions at the very, very end. With all of the panelists available, not just those who presented. So the CORE-CM initiative is a U.S. Department of Energy initiative that is meant to develop the potential of carbon ore, which is a way of saying coal, and coal-like resources, including lignite, for example, and peat, humic matter, rare earth elements, and also critical minerals. And so collectively, those are called CORE-CM, and you'll see that acronym thrown around an awful lot here. It's going to be doing that with the use of public-private partnerships, which the Department of Energy has historically had some good success with. And we believe that's why they're sticking with it this time. This also emphasizes how important all of you on this call are. Without you, we cannot have a fully realized public-private partnership like that. It's going to leverage highly trained workforces. It's going to develop existing and create new novel coal technologies and energy infrastructure, and it's going to develop a supply chain. The point of the CORE-CM initiative is partially to assemble all of the pieces that independently are strong, into a puzzle. It's going to be figuring out how the puzzle pieces fit together, and get people who normally would not speak to each other, who normally would be siloed, solving this problem collaboratively. It's going to do this through detailed assessments. It's going to use state-of-the-art methods for acquisition of potential and assessment of potential CORE-CM materials across all of these US basins. And we're only handling one of those in this project, although you'll see that our group has a second project as well in the Powder River Basin, which will be mentioned. And we're going to build that network of stakeholders. Again, you guys are essential to this work. These are the areas that have been selected by the Department of Energy for further research. And for the sake of the awards, they actually subdivided these further. For example, in the Northern Great Plains province, they gave out multiple basins, multiple different awards, as they did in the Rocky Mountain province. Whether there will be one project in each of these provinces going forward, or if multiples will be selected, we don't know. Our job is to get a strong project for the Greater Green River Basin and the Wind River Basin, which you can see in green in the center of Wyoming there. It also stretches over the border into Colorado, and so we're grateful to our Coloradan colleagues for joining us on this project. There has been some work on carbon ore, trying to find ways to maintain the US feedstock and the US demand for coal with the energy transition coming up. And those uses tend to not use as much coal as burning it would per unit of mass or per unit of volume, but they are useful, and they have come up with some really clever options for using smaller volumes of coal. And collectively, these many different small uses add up to something like a sizable chunk. And so we have great hope there, and that's why the core is being kept. The carbon ore is being kept in CORE-CM. The rare earth elements have been sort of the anchor of the CORE-CM initiative. They've been there from the get-go, and they've remained fairly stable throughout. They have changed a little bit, and there's now a distinction between not just the lights and heavy rare earths, as there always has been, but also between critical and excess rare earth elements. And you can see on this Department of Energy chart, periodic table, that the critical rare earth elements are indicated with a teal sidebar. Those are the ones that have particular uses and are particularly valuable in aerospace applications, clean energy generation, satellite solar panels, and renewable energy, such as wind turbines and the generators in them down here on Earth. So these are sort of a placeholder for all modern technology, and it is without a doubt that they're difficult to replace. So we expect demand for these rare earths to remain strong for many years to come. That's why the Department of Energy is focusing on them. The critical minerals, which includes the rare earth elements, is not a fixed list. At present, it includes 50 individual elements and minerals, for example, potash instead of potassium. And it's changing over time. There's current calls to add 5 additional elements and minerals to the critical materials listing. There's also calls to remove 11 elements and minerals from that listing. And there's even one that has had judgment withheld so far, uranium. So this is a flexible listing. It's going to change over time, possibly even over the course of our multi-year project. And so we need to record all of this information on all of these elements, even those that might not appear important right now. There's potential for them to become important, and we'll be expected to report on those at the end of the project. Locally, I mentioned that the School of Energy Resources at the University of Wyoming is fortunate to be leading 2 CORE-CM projects. We have both this one in the Greater Green River Basin and Wind River Basin, and also another one in the Powder River Basin, which Aaron Phillips is leading. And we'll entertain questions on just the Greater Green River Basin and Wind River Basin this time. But if you wish to ask something that somehow relates, we're happy to hazard a guess as it relates to the Greater Green River Basin. They've both received Department of Energy funding, and they both have strictly started on September 1st and will conclude in August of 2023. We're fortunate to be joined by the School of Energy Resources, Wyoming Energy Authority, and the Colorado School of Mines in producing cost share to enhance the federal government's investment in this project. Within the Greater Green River Basin in particular, which is seen here on the map in teal, and the Wind River Basin, which is also in teal. They're teal because they have subbituminous coal over much of their area. The actual basin is shown in this red outline. It's a little bit harder to see. We're going to be developing a particular plan for these two basins. We're going to be developing some way to improve regional economic growth, job creation, and associated technology innovation around coal materials. And that's the main thrust, is the coal. But the critical minerals and rare earth elements are also going to be important. And so we're going to be defining not only the coal-based sources of those, but also non-coal sources. And that can include things like hard rock deposits, in other industrial uses, for example, trona, which is shown as yellow triangles on this map, and even power plant waste products. We're going to try to reuse existing energy infrastructure, existing businesses, existing industry integrations to make this strong puzzle piece assemblage. We're going to be taking any puzzle pieces that are currently fit together and finding a way to add the rest of them and fit those chunks together. And we've got a coalition team to achieve that objective. This is the coalition team. It includes 4 different parts of the School of Energy Resources and College of Business at the University of Wyoming, the Center for Economic Geology Research, the Center for Energy Regulation and Policy Analysis, the Center for Carbon Capture and Conversion, and the Center for Business and Economic Analysis. These are part of our Centers of Excellence thrust, and bring together not just people within their departments and schools and colleges, but reach out to all other parts of the university, sort of as a mini coalition within the University of Wyoming. We're joined by the Colorado School of Mines, the Colorado Geologic Survey, Los Alamos National Laboratories, the Wyoming Energy Authority, ColdGeo LLC, the Colorado Northwestern Community College, Western Wyoming Community College, and Boston Strategies International. So as I mentioned, our focus is on coal, and you'll see in task 2 presented shortly, that's the main thrust of the project. That's the main task, and Davin will be leading that task when we actually perform the project. That central task 2 is going to be supported by all of the other tasks that are the puzzle pieces we arrange around it and fit together. So we're going to do that task 2, basin assessment of CORE-CM resources, supported by basin strategies for reuse of waste streams, and also basin strategies for infrastructure, industries, and business, and also technology assessment, development, and field testing, and also technology innovation centers, and also stakeholder outreach and education to ensure we have public support. We're going to provide a summary of environmental justice considerations to the Department of Energy. We're going to also be providing them with a summary of economic revitalization and job creation outcomes. And we're going to also perform a health and safety analysis to ensure that the products that we propose for manufacture are safe and healthy for the public. So you can see how this is a holistic plan, and it's organized to focus in on that task 2, which we'll move to now. It's going to be led by Davin Bagdonas. He'll be assisted by Mike, Matthew, and Matt from the Colorado Geologic Survey and the School of Energy Resources Center for Economic Geology Research. And they will evaluate historic and current state-of-the-art carbon ore, rare earth element, and critical mineral data from within the Greater Green River Basin and the Wind River Basins. They're going to build a geologic model and propose future modeling and also study the trends in that data. They're going to identify the information that needs to be learned in later phases. And you can see the people participating in this task as well down at the bottom. And the main thrust here is that we have found from past work that the radioactive component of coal indicated by thorium, which is somewhat troubling to handle. It's possible to handle it, but it's a waste that causes issues when you're processing the core for rare earth elements. We find that it does not necessarily always follow rare earth elements. For example, at the very bottom of this past work, of this past sample, at the lowest point below the surface, about 110 feet down, we find that the rare earth elements occur without a corresponding increase in thorium, which is one of those radioactive wastes. This team in this task will be performing work like this past work to figure out how we can get the rare earth elements out of the coal in the best way possible. And they'll do that by applying standard methodologies and provide input to the coal data initiative and also the NETL REE sedimentary resource assessment method. Task 3 is the one that I will be leading. This study is waste stream reuse in the Greater Green River Basin and Wind River Basin. In this task, we're going to be cataloging different waste streams within the basin. And these are waste streams that both exist already and waste streams that might be generated from exploiting the rare earth elements that are attached to coal from task 2. So if task 2 does decide to go after something that produces, say, a benign acid as a waste, this task will find a way to reuse that waste so that nothing is lost. That methodology is shown here. The first 2 subtasks of task 3 are going to be studying waste streams that have resulted from coal exploration, and we will also be studying waste streams that come from elsewhere in the basin. And we'll be using those in 2 different ways. We'll be trying to get a little bit of extra CORE-CM out of those waste streams to enhance our economics. And we'll also be considering those waste streams to provide reagents to assist task 2 in their extraction. This has obviously policy implications and regulatory requirements. And so it's our pleasure to be assisted by Kip Coddington's group in developing these partnerships, figuring out the ways for the integration of different industries to occur, and to also find out what gap analyses remain, expecting many of those gaps to be regulatory hurdles in the transfer of waste streams. And with that, I'll hand it over to Rachel. Rachel to describe task 4.
Hi everyone, my name is Rachel Pompey and I'm one of the team members working on task 4, which examines strategies for infrastructure, industry, and business integration. Dr. Christelle Kaloff and I work for CBEA, and the other task members are from the Center for Energy Regulation and Policy Analysis and Boston Strategies International. CBEA is a Center for Business and Economic Analysis, which supports the economic growth and diversification of Wyoming's economy through applied economic and business analytics for communities, industries, and entrepreneurs who desire a thriving and prosperous Wyoming. Task 4 is being led by Christelle, who is the Associate Director of the Center for Business and Economic Analysis at the University of Wyoming. I'm a 3rd year PhD student in the Department of Economics, and I'm currently working for Christelle on this project. Task 4 is to facilitate a CORE-CM ecosystem, which we will do by inventorying existing infrastructure, industries, and businesses in the Greater Green River Basin and Wind River Basin. We will identify areas where stakeholders can cooperate to promote economic growth, job creation, and commercial success for CORE-CM in the region. There are several outcomes we're working towards for task 4. The first outcome is to create geospatial databases for mapping infrastructure, businesses, and industries by using information from Dun and Bradstreet microdata, as well as other sources, including Homeland Infrastructure Foundation data, which includes information about firm location, industry, number of employees, among other factors. If you could move the slide forward, that would be perfect. Thank you. Another outcome of task 4 is to map how closely related current producers, infrastructure, and supply chains are to emergent CORE-CM supply chains by clustering industries by similarities and differences. And we will also be conducting a skills gap analysis by examining how similar the skill sets are in existing industries to the skills needed in the emerging industries, as well as we will be engaging with key informants, regional stakeholders, and project partners to fill in any gaps in the data that we're collecting and our knowledge to help enhance our analysis. As it's been stated before, this really is a team effort. And then we will be conducting an economic impact analysis of the potential effects of a fully developed CORE-CM industry in Wyoming.
Okay, thank you, Rachel. And our next slide is Patrick Taylor.
Hello, everybody. It's great to be here and be part of the team. I'm Pat Taylor. I'm at the Colorado School of Mines, where I direct the Kroll Institute for Extractive Metallurgy. I have 45 years of experience in mineral processing and extractive metallurgy. The last 9 or 10 years have been with the Critical Materials Institute. We're proud to be a member of. And I'd like Kirsten to introduce herself. Kirsten.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kirsten Sauer from Los Alamos National Laboratory. My background's in geology and geochemistry, and I'll be leading LANL's involvement in Task 5. Thanks.
Thank you. Basically, our task is the technology assessment. And so as the geologists provide us information on what they've identified as possible targets, we're going to develop an understanding of what the state-of-the-art technology might be to treat these materials. In addition, looking at novel technology. And then once we've done that, we'll start to be in the planning for basin-specific technology development. Next slide, please. These are the outcomes in the statement of work. Again, investigating existing or new technology, identify technology pathways for commercialization. I feel like I'm reading. Anyway, assess existing technology for non-fuel value-added products. And there's shown in a previous slide, there's a lot of research that's gone on looking at things to do with coal besides burn it. Identify new technology that are cost-effective and environmentally friendly and used for coal. Design or develop basin-specific strategies, suggest R&D. The first phase of this, there's not a lot of money for any experimental work. It's basically looking at what technology might be applied. So through this, we'll be able to identify what R&D needs there are to develop these things and concepts for future phases, and to deliver a preliminary technology assessment and identify what field testing might be might be needed. Sorry, I'm a little tongue-tied today. Anyway, that's our part of this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Patrick Taylor. So task 6 is going to be led by Richard Horner. He's the Director of Emerging Projects and Technology at the University of Wyoming School of Energy Resources. And he's going to be leading a team that designs scoping criteria for a technology innovation center. This is a center that would maybe in the future exist to try and bring in communities and new ideas and young companies all together to find new and clever ways to implement all the technology that we identify in the previous tasks on the materials that we've identified in the previous tasks. So this is going to be a future development that enhances the entire work. And you can see our task members down there, University of Wyoming School of Energy Resources, specifically the Carbon Capture and Conversion Center and the Economic Geology Research Center. I will also be partnering with BSI Energy Ventures. The outcomes are going to be to scope the criteria for this Technology Innovation Center. It's going to try to define what it is and then describe some assumptions about what it could be and what it maybe should be, including things such as location, capabilities, operation, and service provided. One of the angles that is important to develop here is that the Technology Innovation Center can be a stimulus for local economies, and therefore it should be placed in a spot that not only makes sense in terms of who it's connecting to whom, but also placed in a sense where it can be good for that particular community. Disadvantaged communities in particular are favored for this Technology Innovation Center location. It's going to then suggest possible outcomes and possible ways to make that Innovation Center realized, and identify the opportunities and the risks that come from placing that Technology Innovation Center where it is in the manner it's designed with the partners that are indicated. It's going to try to come up with some scenarios, more than one way to do this, so that there can be some comparison and evaluation between the options. Among the things that we know already, it's going to define future supply chains for the GGRB and Wind River Basins and their CORE-CM products. It's going to do some ranking and evaluation of technologies. It's going to recommend some supply chain roadmaps, and it's going to propose a scope for other technology innovation centers. This is not necessarily just a single center. It can actually be a coalition of more than one center, perhaps with a head center. This methodology is going to be somewhat similar to the workshop in Wyoming, which we'll hear about on the next slide. And so with that, I'll hand it over to Christine Reed.
Great, thank you, Charles. So as Charles mentioned, I am Christine Reed. I am the Director of Outreach here at the School of Energy Resources, and I will be co-leading this task with my colleague, the ever amazing Emma Jane Alexander, who is the manager of the Shell 3D Visualization Center here, and she brings a wealth of innovative and technological knowledge to this task. So as you can see here on this slide, we will be primarily focusing our outreach efforts across the target basins in collaboration with our project partners to identify and expand the network of people that can aid in this project. This will include identifying and listing content creators and experts who possess the education and outreach content necessary for the success of the project, as well as a list of target stakeholders and communication techniques. When inventorying our communication techniques, we will consider existing distribution methods such as newsletters, webinars, traditional methods such as town hall meetings and presentations, and then of course a project website. We have already created the website to serve as a central location and repository of information for the project, and it will be housed on the School of Energy Resources webpage. We are already also hosting an upcoming webinar on rare earth element and critical mineral development in Wyoming, and that will take place in November, which you'll hear about a little later on in the presentation today. So we'll also be investigating new distribution methods, which is where my colleague, Ms. Alexander, will play a critical role with her technological expertise, as well as our other project partners for Task 7 from Colorado Northwest Community College and Western Wyoming Community College, whom we're very excited to be collaborating with. Next slide, please. Let's see. After identifying what information is needed, identifying their key contributors for content creation and outreach, as well as identifying which stakeholders we need to be communicating with, we will produce a stakeholder and outreach report that will provide a summary of our findings and our planned course of action that will hopefully be implemented in later project phases to effectively connect stakeholders across the CORE-CM value chain. And we will certainly be doing this in close collaboration with the other CORE-CM projects and regional partners that have the same objective in mind. I know Charles has mentioned multiple times our other project here in the Powder River Basin. And then finally, as part of our outreach and engagement efforts, we will be hosting 2 annual stakeholder forums to facilitate communication between our CORE-CM stakeholders. And these will be hosted at each of our site locations with our community college partners. So we do have a representative from each of our community colleges here with us today to talk a little bit more about their roles. So without further ado, I will pass this over to Keith Peterson, who will give us a brief overview of the Colorado Northwest Community College, and then to Clifford Whitstruck at Western Wyoming Community College. So thanks.
Hi, so I'm Keith Peterson, the Vice President of Instruction at Colorado Northwestern Community College. We'll say on face, we're very excited and proud to be a part of this project. Our small rural college exists in a set of communities that by definition are coal transition communities. And so the exciting science and academics that go into this project are fascinating, but the end result of the potential fruition of this grant is really a beacon of light to communities like ours. And so this slide just kind of represents who we are, the different aspects within our communities in which we're engaged, and the things that we're prepared to do to really promote the message to our community as a stakeholder, to really get the message about this project out and be able to use all of the resources that the college has at the disposal of this grant. And so we're very proud to be signed on, and we're looking forward to hosting our first educational community forum so that Davin and his great team can start this project. And we're looking forward to signing on for the additional phases as well. And so proud to be here and happy to offer up Colorado Northwestern Community College to promote this project.
And I'm Cliff Wittstruck. I'm the Vice President for Student Learning at Western Wyoming Community College. Just for awareness, this is a project that is near and dear to our hearts. If you're not aware, it's interesting because at Western, we cover about 30% of the land mass of Wyoming, which is all of Southwest. And we have had a long history of training people in the field of oil, gas, trona, as mentioned earlier, and then obviously coal is a big part of our area. And so really looking forward to being a part of this. Hopefully it'll provide work into the future in addition to finding these other things, because it is one of the things transforming what the economic what the economy looks like in Wyoming into the future. So this is really, really important, and we are excited to be a part of this project.
Okay, thank you, Keith and Cliff. We're now going to go over to Fred McLaughlin to describe some of the other people who are invested in this project, the other stakeholders. Fred.
Thank you very much, Charles. Thanks to my previous panelists for making my job a little bit easier. I think it's all very apparent to the group here that stakeholder involvement is critical. It's one of the success criteria. It's one of the key pillars of CORE-CM. The whole goal, of course, is to build a larger expertise, a larger coalition, and something that's more focused around the stakeholders that do participate on this. So there's a couple different things that Davin asked me to touch on. One, again, is the engagement piece of stakeholder involvement. And Christine Reed, I think, laid this out nicely. One, of course, will be the regional forums. They'll be annual. They'll be both in Wyoming and Colorado to help us engage all stakeholders in both places equally. And we'll also be supplying the project team monthly updates to all stakeholders at a high level so that you guys continue to be informed of what's going on. But just as important as the engagement, I think, is what the involvement areas might be. So that's the key piece I'd like to talk to today on these two slides. The first one is we'll need help from stakeholders advancing the technical tasks. And that will be helping with site access, site hosting. We'll work through sample plans with stakeholders and our industrial partners. And largely one of the most important things is helping to share your insight and experience relative to your resource, to your field, to the industry. All that's absolutely necessary for us to move forward in an effective way on this program. Next slide, please, Charles. But there are other areas of involvement to help advance this Greater Green River Basin CORE-CM. And a lot of that revolves around the technical planning, and that'll be kind of the second half of this grant in a way. I mean, it'll be all involving for the whole thing. But those areas of planning that we'll look for key involvement areas from our industry partners and experts will be helping to develop the critical mineral supply chains based on the resources in the basin, to maybe point out some of those manufacturing high value areas that could be deployed based on resources, expertise, workforce, transportation, et cetera. And then everything around the technology tasks, diversification, transfer, and integration. I think as my colleague Charles Nye pointed out early on in the slide, that's one of the key focus areas is pulling everything together under this grant. Last but not least, and maybe one of the most important things, one of the goals of this Greater Green River Basin CORE-CM is to develop dynamic, long-lasting coalitions around stakeholders in the basin. Next slide, please, Charles. So again, we'd like to thank everybody on the team from both the task leads and Davin for the support thereof. We have many different project partners and stakeholders. I don't think we need to take the time to read through here, so we have a little more time for questions. But you're a very important part of this project, and we thank you for your participation. Thank you, Charles. And I'll hand it back to Davin if he's available to participate.
Yes, thank you. Thank you all who have presented here today. And I think this is a living example of how teamwork precedes these projects to successes. So thank you for taking my place, Charles, and the rest of the panelists who filled in for this. I do want to emphasize having stakeholders available to assist in this project, and vice versa, how this project can assist stakeholders is of utmost importance for success. My experience over the past several years studying coals, specifically rare earth elements and critical materials in coals, has been founded in stakeholder participation. So I'm always thankful for that. And the support we have received for this project is just tremendous to date. Additional resources and opportunities will be updated to everyone on our list. Two to keep track of that I'm aware of currently. We have a rare earth element and critical mineral development in Wyoming webinar. This is Monday, November 15th. The link, thank you, Christine. The link is in the chat now for that event. We would love to have all attendees participate. And if you are aware of other individuals, other entities that might be interested, we would love having you. There's also the AGNC Annual Economic Summit. This is a little ways out. I recently presented a similar slide deck to this, a shortened version, but a background of the CORE-CM initiative at this summit, and very much enjoyed it. It was a tremendous way to meet face-to-face with regional stakeholders in Northwest Colorado. And I think it's a great opportunity for all involved in this project to consider and put on the radar. If you would advance the slide, thank you. Oh, that's the last one. So any inquiries, you can reach out anytime to myself as the project lead, and obviously Christine, our outreach director. We will do our best to answer questions in a timely manner and provide information. If there are other individuals you work with on a daily basis, weekly, monthly basis, other stakeholders who may be valued in this participation in this project, we would gladly welcome them to our stakeholder list as well. And I was just going to say we have no questions, but I do see one here. So from Ray Beck, where is the first innovation center going to be located, and time frame for construction and completion? That's a good question, Ray, and it's actually one that came up at the AGNC summit as well, and it's something we don't yet know. So the very first map slide in this presentation showed the Greater Green River Basin and Wind River Basins in Wyoming and Colorado, and we sort of look at those as two energy economy hubs, both in Rock Springs, Wyoming, and Craig, Colorado. There are certainly other communities involved. I've mentioned those because of one, community college placement where technology transfer can be better utilized. Thank you, Charles. And sort of host those types of developments. But as we move forward, have results in our assessments, start to evaluate technologies and placement, we'll better be able to answer that. That's part of the planning phase. That's the one question. Is there anyone else have a question for this? And feel free, if you think about this, to digest the information and submit via email. My contact information is available if we want to talk on the phone as well. I'm happy to catch everyone up. All right, well, thank you.
Davin, I have a question as a panelist. That's okay.
Oh, sure. Okay,
so Davin, we've worked on some of the resource assessments all over Wyoming for a long time. We know there's huge research gaps still, lots of unknowns. Is there anything, just getting back to our geology roots here, might not be for everybody on the line, but is there anything that's really exciting you that you get the chance to study now that we haven't got a chance to look at before and within your study area?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great question. That does get me very excited. I'm excited to, even though I'm leading this project, stay on the assessment side in leading tasks. One primary target that NETL has previously identified in our work over the years is the Yampa coal bed. It appears to have some components that may be beneficial to CORE-CM. So at least on the Colorado side of this project, that is a primary target, and those coal operators on that end of this project will be critical in being able to evaluate that. Then on the Wyoming side, we've had a great partnership over the years with the Kemmerer operations group. We're working with them closely both before this project began and during the course of this project. It's a unique opportunity to evaluate sort of a larger scope, coal mine scale, versus going out and just grabbing a single sample or something like that. So it provides a unique opportunity in sample resolution, which I think is very unique to this particular project. Okay, I don't see any others. So thank you all for attending today. Again, I appreciate your time, and I appreciate your flexibility and patience with the last minute format change we had. My panelists, and of course, Charles and I for taking over during my illness here today. So thank you all. And again, reach out as needed. We appreciate participating. We appreciate conversations about this project.